तो आपने फिर कब डिसाइड किया कि स्टॉक मार्केट इज़ समथिंग दैट इज़ मेड फॉर मी एंड मेरे को बस इसमें ही करियर बनाना है? वो आपका फर्स्ट मनी सक्सेस कब हुआ था?
So I think, see, I had, my father used to invest in stocks and very small amounts, but he used to invest and make me read the prices. So मैंने कहा कुछ तो है इसमें, मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है. And I was always a tech, my maths oriented guy and all that. So the numbers made sense, but I didn't know what was being bought and sold. After we started building this accounting package, and I was also working on a few projects for some companies that were looking for accounting accounting-ish kind of solutions. We had to analyze, say, balance sheets and stuff like that. I didn't know what a balance sheet was. So उस time पे I think SEBI had just started the rule saying people have to put their balance sheets on their website. So हमने कहा website पे जाएंगे, निकालेंगे, देखते क्या है, कुछ तो था एक. So there would be this, assets and liabilities. तो मैं जाता था ये liability में क्यों है? We have, why is share capital a liability? Then somebody would make me understand. And why would so then I kind of understood. I mean, even now I struggle with what is debit and what is credit, simply because like you have to go back to first principles. मैंने उतना किया नहीं है, लेकिन मैंने कहा उस टाइम पे मेरे को, because I used to look at sometimes the entries that were being done and all that in the software that we used to make. I got to know roughly how these ledgers are updated, and therefore how do you create a balance sheet and stuff like that, and got some idea. But what was interesting to me was that over a period of time, you could see some absolutely crazy numbers in terms of just stocks growing. So, for instance, my father had bought what was called the Hero Honda IPO. What's little bit of shares, and within 20 years, or 2002 2003, they were not even 20 years, it was about 18 years, they had become astronomically more valuable, more than 100x or something like that by that time, which is crazy because just bonuses and performance, and just the fact that us time pe jitni how much ever you paid for that share, it had come back many times, and that just dividends alone. And now there was more growth that was happening. So I was looking at this and saying, this is what my dad did, but I don't have anything of that. But then I experimented. खरीदें क्या, what will move and what does. So I bought a few stocks, but as you initially imagine कि पैसे जल्दी बनाना होता है, तो पहली बार कर रहे हो, तो you want something to give you returns in 3 months. But on the other hand, I was seeing that if you think of a long-term approach for stocks, that it does give you a fantastic return longer term. And mutual funds were more difficult to buy because you needed some paper process checks and all that stuff. Whereas I think Sher Khan and IAFL ya kuch tha, 5 paisa something, they were online, so you could give them money and then you could quickly transact online. So I could experiment with much more things with that. So I started learning this stuff. I discovered that I like it. I mean, I like the concept of looking at stocks and making money, except I couldn't get my finger around how these prices move. Then I started writing about it. I said, 2005 May I started Capitalmind's original thing was a blog. So I started writing on it. I said, okay, just I go into this journey, I will try and understand what each of these things. So I've written about stocks, futures, options, mutual funds, debt, name it, and I've because each time was an experiment saying, अच्छा ये है, मैंने ये किया, तो देखते हैं क्या होता है, or this has happened, let's see what happens. So then you see a lot of stuff. So 2004 to 2007 or 2002 to 2007 is probably the biggest bull market India has seen. Even bigger than the 1998 to 2000 story, because us time pe, I mean, it was just crazy. In each of these years, the market was down at least 20%, and most of these years at least 30%. 2004 mein when the market crashed because of elections, so I think the left came into power. So market crashed, was lower circuit, 10%, ye wo. Market was down 30% from the top in 3 months, but in 3 more months it had recovered. It went down 30 and came back up. In 2005 there was a 20% fall. In 2006 Again, there was a massive bull market. There was something called Reliance Petroleum, which listed, had an IPO. I think that and a few other companies listed at that time. That after that Reliance Petroleum listing, the market fell another 30%. So Reliance Petroleum itself listed at some 100 or 96 rupees. It fell all the way back to 60 rupees, which was its IPO price. Which was one of the first instances we had ever seen of a Reliance company falling to just below its IPO price. Very few. But then it stayed at 60, and then eventually something and all happened. It got merged back into Reliance Industries itself. But we saw, you literally saw a 30% market fall at that time. 2007, nobody really knows this, but there was a day in which there was a lower circuit hit in the stock market. 2007 was a 45% year, but there was a lower circuit hit in the market on one of the days.
Why?
2008 May, 2007 October or September May. I think it was Chidambaram who came on TV or the SEBI guy, Damodaran, or whoever was there that time. He came and said, FIIs they will not be allowed to issue P notes. P notes are something called participatory notes. FIIs issue them to participate in Indian stocks without having an Indian account. मतलब आप अगर US में हो, कोई fund हो, a Morgan Stanley will set up a P note thing, set up an FII in Mauritius. They will issue P notes to some guy in the US, and on the whatever money is received, they use to invest in some stock in India. So it's a pass through. इंडिया का फंडा है यार, ये US एंटिटी कौन है और ये हमें क्यों नहीं बता रहे हो आप कौन है, तो उस बंदे को डायरेक्टली लेके आओ एज एन एफआईआई या फिर वो बंद करो प्रोडक्ट, राइट. सो बिकॉज दे वर सेइंग कि प्रोमोटर खुद अपना पैसा निकाल रहा है यहाँ से और वापस डाल रहा है पी नोट के जरिए, तो मतलब मैनिपुलेट कर रहा है स्टॉक मार्केट को. ऐसा था, अभी भी चलता है ऐसे सारे रूमर्स. मतलब अगर कोई बाहर पैसे लेके जा रहा है थोड़ी वापस अंदर डालेगा, यहाँ पे लेके जा रहा है ना वो, यहाँ पे तो अलग चीज से कर सकता है. बट ठीक है, तब था ये कि बाहर वाले आ रहे हैं, ये वो ये एंड ऑल, कि प्रोमोटर ही घुमा रहा है पैसे को. चलो ठीक है, वो था. लेकिन उसकी वजह से जो उन्होंने बोला कि पी नोट का जो हम बैन कर रहे हैं, उसकी वजह से मार्केट गिरा 10%. लेकिन उसी दिन सेबी फेलो केम एंड सेड, देखो हम ये नहीं कह रहे हैं कि अभी बंद करो, 5 साल का टाइम है. You have 5 years to register as an FII yourself. After 5 years, we'll close the P notes. Then market recovered and came back. So it was very fast, but there was a low circuit on the index. And then 2008 was also a lower circuit on the index. 2009 was an upper circuit on the index because the left went out of power. So बाय रूल ऑफ प्रोपोर्शन आजकल ये दो चीजें अगर होती भी तो मार्केट 2% के ऊपर हिलेगी नहीं, क्योंकि फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता मार्केट को किस तरह. इट डजंट मैटर, गुड न्यूज इज नॉट गुड न्यूज एंड बैड न्यूज इज नॉट बैड न्यूज. बट दैट टाइम अ लॉट ऑफ दीज थिंग्स यूज्ड टू हैपन. सो मार्केट्स वर वेरी वोलेटाइल. I discovered somewhere that I like this volatility, and you can somewhere in the middle. I think I stumbled upon this concept that you can use tech to use statistical analysis on the markets and figure out. And I already started to read some books. One of the books was this book called Market Wizards by I forget his name now. Oh God, Jack something. I will get his name in 2 seconds. He has a series of books, the Market Wizards, New Market Wizards. So I read the New Market Wizards first. Very interesting book that talked about people who had made money from the markets, and a few of them were very interesting. There was this mention of this group called the Turtles. And the Turtles mein kya tha ki this is a zamane wala book where this guy called, I don't know if you've seen this movie called Trading Places, I think it's called. Trading Places, zamane wala book, where two people are arguing कि people who can make money in the markets are either born traders or they're not born traders, they can be taught to be traders. एक बंदा बोलता है यार you have to be born, दूसरा बंदा बोलता है कि no, you can train them. So this argument actually happened between two real people. One guy was called Ron Dennis, and I forget the other guy's name. So they actually were two big guys in the financial world in the US. Ron Dennis eventually left his trading career and became a political something support system and all that stuff. But Ron Dennis actually said, I can train traders the way they teach, they breed turtles in Singapore. So Singapore mein, they used to have turtle farms, jahan pe used to put this thing, and turtles would breed, and then they would get a lot of turtles and all that stuff. So he said, I will breed traders like turtles are bred. And the way he said that was, I will put an advertisement out there, and whoever I find with the right characteristics, I will teach them to be traders. And his funda was that you had to have only one concept. You had to be very disciplined and understanding of the rules. That means if you could follow a set of rules very well and keep your emotions out of it, you could trade. And then he taught them. He identified such people and eliminated people who couldn't follow rules over more, flimsy and all that. People who could follow rules, he taught them the system. He said, when something like this happens, you should buy, and something like this happens, you should sell. And he made them trade commodities. And those people went on to become very famous as individual traders also, as they were called the turtles. So this story, and I was like, boss, ये तो मतलब folklore है, करता क्या है? So very simple कि कुछ तो है, ऐसा है, and there's a ATR, average trading range. If the stock is above so much of it crosses over this ATR, and then at this point you should add more, and this. So there's a set of rules, and the rules were well published, were well known by this time, because they had stopped working in the US. सो ऐसे यूएस में शायद बंद हो गया होगा, लेकिन यहाँ पे शायद चलेगा, क्योंकि हमारा मार्केट इज न्यू. सो आई सेड, हाउ डू आई टेस्ट दिस? एंड interestingly at that time, while I was thinking about all of this stuff, Nitin Kamath was a sub broker of Reliance Securities or something, and he had a very interesting proposition where he would they would charge you a price per lot. So I wanted to learn futures and options as well. And by the way, a lot of these guys in this book, New Market Wizards, were trading futures and options. So I wanted to do this. The cheapest was Reliance Securities at the time, because they were charging 20 rupees per lot. And I met, and Nitin was very fascinating, was young and very driven and all that. So I met him once, and he told me, yeah, there are strategies of various sorts, and simplest thing is, if there's a moving average and you cross it, you buy, and you sell. If it crosses down, you sell. And he showed me a few of these charts, and I was like, wow, this sounds interesting. How do you, he said, no, you have to build systems to test all this stuff. So I said, boss, ye mere ko aata hai. I can collect the data from places, and there were a few websites which were selling this data, 1 minute data, 1 day data, and all that. And you could download the data, and you could put them into a little database and write these little programs to test. Then I found some programs. I started testing. I said, dude, this is interesting. I could build programs that work on Indian data, because a lot of the data systems that were there were tested on US stocks, and many of them had stopped working, which is why they were openly published कि देखो ये काम नहीं कर रहा है. That's why they're published, right? So it's like, काम नहीं कर रहा तभी तो दे रहा हूँ, नहीं तो नहीं दूंगा ना, मतलब नहीं तो मैं खुद ही पैसा कमाऊंगा उसमें. So, but some of them, when you married them to Indian data, you were like, okay, there is something here. Something as, I mean, there was some system, but you had to go a little bit more into detail. So I studied a little more, and I found it. Of course, Zerodha went on to become really big after that. Zerodha was started in 2009. But I went in saying I want to do this algorithmic trading myself. मैं गया और कुछ बनाया. My funda at that time was, you can marry tech and this thing. But my funda was, मैं ऐसे programs बनाऊंगा, लोग मेरे से programs खरीदेंगे. Because you're thinking techie, right? You're thinking कि program ही बेचेगा ना, क्या आदमी और क्या बेच सकता है इसमें. Program बनाऊंगा तो then you will find कि तुम, or I will get all this data together, and I will give you a subscription to this data, so you can buy access to my website for, I don't know, 100 rupees a month or something like that. And the problem is, I was making this assumption that everybody was as kicked about in algorithmic trading as I was. The answer is no, it was not, because this is 2007 by this time. एंड द वे ऑल यू नीडेड टू मेक मनी, मतलब पैसे बनाने के लिए आपको जिंदा होना जरूरी था, बस आपको बस मार्केट में पैसा डालना था और समहाउ बाय द एंड ऑफ द वीक यू वर प्रॉफिटेबल। इतना पागलपना चल रहा था मार्केट में उस टाइम पे। आप कुछ भी खरीदो, कुछ भी, जो आप टीवी चैनल खोलो, जो ऐड आ रहा है उस कंपनी का आप लुकअप करो, कौन सा स्टॉक है उसको खरीदो आप, 4 दिन बाद वो ऊपर, बिकॉज दैट्स द वे द मार्केट वाज, इट वाज क्रेजी। 4000 था